The group shaving machine. Imagine the dawn of the 20th century. Industry is booming, efficiency is the new god, and the assembly line is revolutionizing production. In this frenzy of optimization, some minds looked beyond the factory floor and into the mundane rituals of daily life. What if, they pondered, the slow, solitary act of shaving could be scaled up? What if you could shave a dozen men with the same mechanical efficiency as bottling a dozen sodas? This wasn't a joke. It was a serious, patented proposal. In the year 1898, the U.S. Patent Office granted patent to a man from Rock Island, Illinois, named Eric M.G. Oman. His creation? The group shaving machine. Let's be clear about what this was. This wasn't just a better razor. This was a dystopian contraption designed to shave multiple men simultaneously, assembly line style. Picture a large circular frame. Around its perimeter, up to 12 chairs are arranged, each facing inwards. Each chair is equipped with a headrest and a chin rest, designed to hold the subject's head in a perfectly still, standardized position. Resistance, it seems, was not anticipated. From the center of this bizarre carousel of faces, a series of mechanical arms extended, each one tipped not with a delicate blade, but with a complex apparatus of brushes and razors. The process was horrifyingly methodical. Once the gentlemen were locked into place, the machine would whir to life. First, the lathering arms would descend, their brushes rotating to apply a uniform layer of shaving soap to each of the 12 faces below. No consideration for skin type, beard thickness, or personal preference. You get the standard soaping, and you'll like it. After the lathering cycle, these arms would retract, and a second set of arms, the razor arms, would take their place. These were the business end of the invention. Each arm held a sharp, unguarded razor blade poised to scrape across the faces of the captive audience. The central mechanism would then rotate, dragging the blades across the contours of 12 different faces in a single, sweeping, synchronized motion. The sheer madness of the concept is breathtaking. Oman's patent application is a masterpiece of technical drawing and detached mechanical language, completely ignoring the squishy, unpredictable, and frankly terrified human element. He meticulously details the gears, levers, and cams required to orchestrate this symphony of blades, but gives little thought to the immense diversity of human faces. What about a prominent chin? A deep-set jaw? A mole? The machine had one path, and your face had to conform to it. The potential for nicks, cuts, and outright maiming was astronomical. It was less a barbershop convenience and more a piece of industrial torture equipment designed by someone who had only ever seen a human face in a technical diagram. Why did Oman believe this was a good idea? The patent speaks of saving time and labor, the siren song of the industrial age. In a world of burgeoning military forces, large factory workforces, and institutional living, the idea of shaving men in bulk might have seemed like a logical extension of mass production. It was an attempt to apply the cold, hard logic of the factory to the soft, vulnerable flesh of the human neck. The goal was uniformity, speed, and the elimination of the individual barber. It was a vision of a future where personal grooming was an industrial process, stripped of all artistry and care. Thankfully, the group shaving machine never saw the light of day. There is no evidence it was ever built, let alone used. It remains a phantom of the patent office, a paper ghost that illustrates a peculiar and terrifying dead end in the history of innovation. It serves as a stark reminder that efficiency, when pursued without regard for humanity, can lead to monstrously absurd conclusions. The world, it turned out, was not ready for industrialized shaving, and the necks of men everywhere are safer for it. The Isolator Helmet. In 1925, Hugo Gernsback, a man often called the father of science fiction, looked at the world and saw a singular, overwhelming problem: distraction. The roar of the city, the chatter of colleagues, the incessant hum of modern life. It was, in his view, a constant assault on the delicate fortress of human concentration. Gernsback, an editor, publisher, and inventor, believed that true productivity and deep thought required absolute sensory deprivation. His solution wasn't a quiet room or a set of earplugs. It was a terrifying piece of headgear he called the Isolator. The Isolator was, to put it mildly, a sensory deprivation helmet straight out of a low-budget horror film. It was a solid, all-encompassing helmet, likely made of wood or metal, that was completely sealed off from the outside world. There were no openings for light, and the entire interior was lined with cork and felt to make it soundproof. Once you donned the Isolator, you were plunged into a world of total silence and darkness. But how, you might ask, could you work if you couldn't see? Gernsback had a solution for that, and it's where the design goes from merely strange to actively nightmarish. Protruding from the front of the helmet were two small glass eyepieces positioned directly in front of the wearer's eyes. These eyepieces were painted almost entirely black, save for two tiny horizontal slits at the bottom. This design severely restricted the wearer's field of vision to a tiny sliver, just enough to see a line of text on a page and nothing else. The idea was to eliminate all visual distractions, forcing the wearer to focus only on the work directly in front of them. To combat the inevitable sleepiness that comes from sitting in a dark, silent box. Gernsback included another feature, a connection for an oxygen tank. A tube would feed a steady stream of pure oxygen into the helmet, which he believed would keep the user alert and focused. Imagine sitting at your desk wearing this thing. You are entombed in a heavy, soundless, lightless void. Your vision is reduced to a claustrophobic slit. Your only connection to the outside world is a hissing tube pumping oxygen into your personal sensory prison. Gernsback wasn't just inventing a productivity tool, he was inventing a portable solitary confinement chamber. He even published photos of himself wearing the device, looking like a steampunk executioner, ready to read some very, very important documents. The underlying logic, while extreme, taps into a timeless struggle. Gernsback was grappling with the same information overload and environmental distraction that we combat today with noise-canceling headphones and website blockers. He simply took the concept to its most literal and terrifying conclusion. He believed that the human mind was a delicate instrument that needed to be shielded from the outside pandemonium. In an article for his magazine, Science and Invention, he lamented that the greatest difficulty of the student and the thinker is to concentrate. The Isolator was his brute force answer. It wasn't about managing distractions, it was about annihilating them. Unsurprisingly, the Isolator did not become a workplace staple. The sheer impracticality is obvious. It was cumbersome, claustrophobic, and likely induced more panic than productivity. The idea of strapping an oxygen tank to your desk just to get some reading done was a bridge too far for even the most distraction-prone worker. The invention was a commercial failure, a curiosity showcased in the pages of his magazine and then largely forgotten. Yet it remains a powerful and strangely prescient artifact. It is a physical manifestation of the desperate desire for focus in a world that seems designed to shatter it. While we may laugh at its absurd design, the problem it tried to solve is more relevant now than ever. We've just traded the oxygen tank and blackout helmet for digital wellness apps and the Pomodoro technique, the cat piano or Klavierkatze. History is filled with bizarre musical instruments, from the glass harmonica to the theremin. But none are quite as macabre, as ethically questionable, or as profoundly weird as the cat piano or Katzenklavier. This wasn't just a whimsical name. The instrument was designed to be built from a row of living, breathing cats. It is an invention that sits at the horrifying intersection of music theory, animal cruelty, and a complete detachment from sanity. The concept is most famously described by the German polymath Athanasius Kircher in his 1650 work, Mussurgia Universalis. Kircher, a Jesuit scholar who dabbled in everything from geology to medicine, detailed the construction of this feline organ with unnerving precision. The design was simple and sadistic. A row of cats would be selected and arranged according to the natural pitch of their meows. They would be placed in cages or fixed in a line, with their tails stretched out and positioned beneath a keyboard mechanism. Each key on the piano was connected to a sharp nail or spike directly above a cat's tail. The performance was as straightforward as it was cruel. When a musician pressed a key, the corresponding nail would sharply strike the tail of the unfortunate cat below. The cat would, naturally, cry out in pain. The resulting meow would serve as the musical note. A skilled player could, in theory, produce a melody from this chorus of feline agony. Kircher described it not as a tool for serious composition, but as a therapeutic device. He claimed it was built to treat a prince suffering from a deep melancholy. The sight and sound of the cat piano in action, a symphony of shrieks from a line of tormented animals, was supposedly so utterly absurd and shocking that it would jolt the prince out of his depression through sheer, horrified laughter. While Kircher's description is the most famous, the idea may have existed even earlier. The French writer Jean-Baptiste Weckerlin, in his 1877 book Musicienne, Extraits d'ouvrages rares ou bizarres, Musicienne, extracts from rare or bizarre works, attributes the invention to a man named Juan de la Hoya, who allegedly presented it to King Philip II of Spain. The story is largely the same, a procession featuring the instrument designed to cure the monarch's gloom with its grotesque absurdity. The crucial question is, was the cat piano ever actually built? Most historians believe it was purely a thought experiment, a conceptual device designed to shock and satirize. Kircher himself was known for his fantastical ideas and his descriptions of wonders he had never personally witnessed. The cat piano was likely a satirical commentary on the nature of music, therapy, and perhaps the absurd lengths to which one might go to entertain royalty. It was a piece of grotesque satire, a joke written in the language of invention. There are no credible first-hand accounts of anyone actually constructing or playing one. The practical challenges alone, finding cats with perfectly pitched meows, keeping them in place, the cacophony of untuned yowling, would make it an impossible undertaking. Yet, the image of the cat piano has endured for centuries, a powerful symbol of bizarre and cruel ingenuity. It represents a line where the quest for novelty crosses into the realm of the monstrous. It's a joke so dark that its punchline is a shriek of pain. Whether real or imagined, the cat's enclavier forces us to confront the strangest and most disturbing corners of human creativity. It remains the most infamous instrument never played, a silent, horrifying testament to an idea so wrong, it's unforgettable. The Amphibious Bicycle, also known as cyclomer. The dream of amphibious travel is as old as the wheel itself. The idea of seamlessly transitioning from land to water, of pedaling down a road and straight into a river without missing a beat, has captivated inventors for generations. Most attempts have involved complex, boat-like contraptions. But in 1932, a Parisian inventor presented a solution that was breathtaking in its simplicity and its spectacular impracticality: the cyclomer, an amphibious bicycle. At first glance, the cyclomer looked something like a bicycle that had been in a terrible accident with a set of buoys. The standard bicycle frame was there, complete with pedals, handlebars, and a seat. The innovation, however, was in the wheels. The traditional spoke-carrying wheels were replaced with large, hollow, airtight drums. These drums, which also had fins or paddles attached to their circumference, were designed to serve a dual purpose. On land, they would act as wheels, allowing the cyclomer to roll along like a very clumsy bicycle. In the water, these same drums would act as pontoons, providing the buoyancy needed to keep the machine and its rider afloat. The fins on the drums were meant to grip the water as the rider pedaled, propelling the contraption forward. The concept was born from a desire for a simple, human-powered vehicle that could conquer both terrains. The inventor showcased his creation on the banks of the River Seine in Paris. Photographs from the era show a man in a bathing suit, proudly perched atop this strange machine, ready to pedal his way into the history books. The land-based demonstration was likely a wobbly affair. The large, hollow drums would have made for a heavy and unbalanced ride. But the real test, the moment of truth, was the transition to water. With a crowd of onlookers and photographers watching, the rider pedaled the cyclomer down a ramp and into the Seine. And for a moment, it worked. The machine floated. The large drums, as designed, provided enough buoyancy to keep it from sinking. The rider, sitting high above the water, began to pedal furiously. This is where the beautiful, simple theory collided with the harsh, wet reality of physics. The fins on the pontoon wheels were simply not large or efficient enough to provide any meaningful propulsion. Pedaling created a lot of splashing and a great deal of effort, but very little forward movement. The cyclomer was, essentially, a bicycle that could float but not navigate. It was at the complete mercy of the river's current. The demonstration, while proving the amphibious part of the name, also proved its utter uselessness as a mode of transportation. It was a machine that performed poorly on land and even worse in water. It was a master of neither domain, a clumsy compromise that failed to be a good bicycle or a good boat. It was a brilliant idea on paper that simply could not overcome the fundamental forces of drag and hydrodynamics. The cyclomer quickly faded into obscurity, remembered only in a few black and white photographs as a charming Parisian folly. It represents a specific type of inventive failure, the kind that is so logical in its design yet so flawed in its execution. It's a testament to the fact that combining two things doesn't always result in something better. Sometimes you just end up with the worst of both worlds. The dream of pedaling across a lake remains, but the cyclomer stands as a buoyant, motionless monument to the difficulty of achieving it. The Flying SteamPowered Man. Before the Wright brothers conquered the skies with wings and propellers, the dream of flight took many strange and wonderful forms. In the mid-19th century, a time of steam power and boundless optimism, one inventor envisioned a future where personal flight was not achieved with gliders or balloons, but by strapping a steam engine to your back and blasting off into the heavens. This was the vision of the aeronaut, a steam-powered flying man patented in 1842 by an English engineer named John Stringfellow and his collaborator William Henson. This was not a design for an airplane. This was a design for a personal flight suit, a 19th century jetpack powered by coal and boiling water. The patent drawings depict a man wearing a rigid framework on his back. Mounted on this frame is a compact, high-pressure steam engine, complete with a small boiler and a furnace. The engine's purpose was to drive a pair of large, flapping wings modeled after those of a bird or a bat. The pilot, or aeronaut, would wear this entire heavy apparatus, stoke the coal fire, build up a head of steam, and then, through some combination of running, jumping, and frantic flapping, take to the air. The design was a marvel of misplaced ingenuity. Stringfellow and Henson were serious engineers, pioneers in the study of aerodynamics. Their work on fixed-wing aircraft was groundbreaking and directly influenced the eventual success of the Wrights. But the steam-powered man was a different beast entirely. It was a concept that wildly overestimated the power-to-weight ratio of steam technology and dramatically underestimated the complexities of biomechanics and flight control. Let's consider the sheer terror of operating such a device. The wearer would have a pressurized boiler, essentially a controlled bomb, strapped directly to their spine. A live coal fire would be burning just inches from their body. The noise, the heat, and the vibrating machinery would be immense, and that's before you even leave the ground. The proposed control system was rudimentary, relying on the pilot shifting their body weight to steer, all while a steam engine chugged away on their back and a pair of enormous mechanical wings flapped violently beside them. The potential for catastrophic failure was not just a risk, it was a near certainty. Why steam? In the 1840s, steam was the pinnacle of power. It drove the trains, powered the factories, and was shrinking the world. To an inventor of that era, it was the only logical choice for a portable power source. The internal combustion engine was still decades away from being a viable, lightweight alternative. So they worked with what they had, attempting to miniaturize the same technology that powered locomotives and apply it to the delicate challenge of human flight. While the full-body aeronaut suit was never built, likely because any sane person would refuse to wear it, Stringfellow did build a small, unmanned, steam-powered monoplane based on these principles. In 1848, in a disused lace factory in Chard, Somerset, he achieved what is considered by many to be the first ever powered flight, albeit a short indoor hop. His steam-powered model flew for a few dozen feet before landing. It was a monumental achievement, but it also proved the limitations of the technology. The engine was simply too heavy and inefficient for sustained flight, especially for a man-carrying version. The steam-powered flying man remains a fantastical what-if of aviation history. It is a perfect example of how the dreams of inventors are often constrained by the technology of their time. It was a bold, imaginative, and utterly terrifying concept that tried to force the raw, brute power of the Industrial Revolution onto the elegant and subtle principles of flight. The baby cage. The 1930s were a time of great anxiety and great innovation. In the crowded, smog-filled cities of London and New York, parents worried about their children's health. Fresh air and sunshine were seen as vital for a child's development, a cure for rickets and a booster for the immune system. But for families living in cramped, multi-story apartment buildings, a private garden or a safe park was an unattainable luxury. How could you give your baby the benefits of the outdoors when you lived 10 floors up? In 1922, a woman from Spokane, Washington, named Emma Reed, patented a solution that was both ingenious and deeply unsettling: the baby cage. The concept was exactly what it sounds like. It was a wire mesh cage similar to a chicken coop, designed to be suspended from an apartment window. The cage would be secured to the exterior windowsill with the open side facing into the apartment. A parent could then place their baby, and perhaps a few toys, into the cage, close the window, and leave the child to air several stories above the bustling street below. The wire mesh would prevent the baby from falling out, while allowing sunlight and fresh air to circulate freely. The idea gained some traction, particularly in London. In 1937, members of the Chelsea Baby Club, a social organization for new mothers, were issued these cages. Archival photos show nannies casually placing infants into these wire contraptions, which dangle precariously from the sides of brick apartment buildings. The babies, seemingly unfazed, look out from their lofty perches as traffic moves far below. To the modern eye, the images are shocking. They trigger an immediate, visceral fear of heights and a sense of parental panic. The sight of a baby in a cage hanging out of a high-rise window seems like the very definition of child endangerment. But to understand the baby cage, you have to understand the mindset of the era. This wasn't seen as neglectful, it was seen as responsible, progressive parenting. It was a scientific solution to an urban problem. The prevailing medical advice of the day, heavily influenced by Luther Emmett Holt's 1894 book, The Care and Feeding of Children, stressed the importance of airing infants to build their immunity and toughen them up. Holt wrote that babies benefited from exposure to cool, fresh air, and that crying from the cold was actually a healthy form of exercise. For apartment-dwelling mothers who took this advice to heart, the baby cage was a practical tool. It was a way to follow doctor's orders without having to haul a baby and a pram down multiple flights of stairs to a potentially unsafe or unsanitary street. The patent application filed by Emma Reed highlights this logic. It describes the invention as an article for babies and young children to be suspended upon the exterior of a building adjacent to an open window. It was designed for confining and exercising the baby where it could have fresh air and sunshine. There was no malice in the design, only a utilitarian desire to solve a problem. The popularity of the baby cage was short-lived. While it was used by a handful of parenting clubs and individuals, it never became a mainstream product. As the decades wore on, societal standards for child safety changed dramatically. The idea of placing a child in an unsupervised, elevated cage became unthinkable. The risks, a structural failure, a dropped object from a window above, the sheer psychological terror, far outweighed the perceived benefits of airing. The baby cage was quietly retired, becoming a bizarre footnote in the history of parenting. Today, it serves as a startling reminder of how much our ideas about safety, risk, and childhood have evolved. It was an invention born of good intentions, but one that looks, from our modern vantage point, like a recipe for absolute disaster.